Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk a little bit about Oblivion and its often misunderstood and frequently maligned leveling system. This is a leveling system that I actually rather like, but it does have a reputation for producing some negative effects as you progress towards the end of the game or get to higher levels. But at the same time, I think it's also a leveling system that can produce a very rich RPG experience if you actually understand how it works. Now, before I get into the inner workings of how the system works, let me take just a few moments and talk about 3 different approaches to leveling that you can choose. And why I'm introducing these first will become obvious. The first way that you can level in Oblivion is to just pick a class that aligns with your desired playstyle and just play the game. That's right, you could turn off this video and just go play the game, and you'll have a pretty good experience. If you are willing to adjust down that difficulty slider if you find that the game starts to become too challenging. Because one of the consequences of the leveling system is that as you get further along in the game, enemies get harder and harder, whereas your ability to combat those enemies doesn't necessarily scale linearly with that, meaning the game tends to get a little bit more challenging as you get up into the higher levels. This is standard for a lot of gaming experiences, but for RPGs, usually you want to feel like your character is becoming more and more powerful. Luckily, Elder Scrolls 4 provides a solution for this in the form of a difficulty slider, and you can adjust that to wherever you feel like enemies are challenging enough to meet your gaming requirements. The second way that you can level in Oblivion is to level efficiently. I've already done a large piece of content on how to level efficiently in Oblivion, and you can check that out if you are interested in interacting with the systems on a very, very deep level. The gist of it is that you micromanage what skills and spells you use each level in order to maximize your gains between levels. This is not a playstyle for everyone. That brings me to the third option, balanced character creation, which is very carefully picking what kind of character you're going to make at the beginning of the game to offset some of the negative effects of the leveling system, and then you just play the game the way that you want to play it. So with those options in mind, you may just want to go ahead and turn off the video and go play the game and ignore what the leveling system does on a deeper level. But for those of you who like a little bit more involved interaction with RPG systems, go ahead and listen on. In the game, there are 3 different things which determine your overall effectiveness: your skills, your attributes, and your resources. Raising your skills causes you to level up, which allows you to raise your attributes, which then raises your resources. Your skills are your things that you actually do in the world. If you swing your sword, you're using the blade skill. If you pick a lock, you're using the security skill. Your attributes are like your stats. If you were to look at a Dungeons & Dragons character sheet, they determine the effectiveness of all of your skills as well as the values of your resources. Your resources are like your health pool, your stamina pool, and your magicka pool, which determines how many hits you can take before you die, how hard you can swing your sword before you're exhausted, and how many spells you can cast before you're out of magic. Outside of leveling up, there are 3 things which can affect your skills, attributes, and resources. These are race, class, and sign. Your race you pick when you initially make your character, like Orc or Khajiit or Imperial or Dark Elf, and each race has a different set of boosted skills and attributes. Your class you pick during the tutorial section of the game in the Imperial Sewers, and that will give you 7 major and 7 minor skills, and you'll receive a boost to all of the skills that you pick as major skills. The last one, your sign, is basically your birthday, and you pick that during the tutorial as well. And that has the potential to give you access to certain skills or to boost your attributes. The main way that you raise your skills is by doing things. If you kill things with the sword, you're going to have an increase of your blade skill. If you pick lots of locks, you're going to have an increase in your security skill. If you do lots of persuasion, you're going to have an increase in your speechcraft skill. And if you sell lots of things, you'll have an increase in your mercantile skill. You can also pay a trainer to raise your skills directly, and there's also gear in the game which will raise your skills indirectly. As you raise your skills, several things will happen. The first thing is you get more effective with that skill, so a sword will do more damage as you continue to skill up in blade. You'll also unlock some hidden perks. These vary by skill. In the case of a sword or blade skill, it would be additional moves that you can do that are unlocked at the 25, 50, 75, and 100 skill level. Another thing that happens, particularly with magical skills, is they become more efficient, meaning they use less resources out of your resource pool. This in turn allows you to cast more expensive spells, which can do more damage or summon more fearsome demons from the netherworlds of Oblivion. Now you actually level up by raising your skills. However, not all skills will cause you to level up. Only the skills which are your major skills, which are determined by your class or your custom class if you made one of those, will actually cause you to gain a level. Your minor skills will not. However, they do have an effect on the leveling process. In order to level up, you need to gain 10 skill ups from your major skills. When you do this, a little dialogue will pop up that you should rest and reflect on what you've learned. When you do that, that is when you level up. And when you level up, you'll have the opportunity to raise 3 different attributes. The amount that you can raise these attributes by is determined by which skill ups you have received during that level. Raising something like your blade skill will allow you to raise your strength when you level up. Raising something like your security skill will allow you to raise your agility when you level up. Each attribute has 3 skills that are associated with it. The only exception is luck, which has no skills associated with it, but which has the practical effect of increasing the effectiveness of all your skills. The amount that you can raise an attribute by is determined by the total number of skill ups you've gotten, which are associated with that attribute, divided by 2, up to a maximum of 5. What that means is that if you want to gain 5 strength, you have to get 10 total skill ups with the skills that are associated with strength, which would be blade, blunt, and hand-to-hand. You can do these in any combination. So you could get 5 skill ups with blade and 5 skill ups with blunt, and that would give you 10 total skill ups in strength, which would allow you to raise the attribute by 5. This is where your minor skills come into play, because if you are only raising your major skills when you level up, you'll find that getting a +5 attribute is difficult. The goal of efficient leveling is to make sure you get +5 on 3 different attributes every time you level up, and that requires careful management of your major and minor skills. When you raise an attribute, it then increases the effectiveness of the skills that are associated with it, and it also increases your resources. And it can have other effects as well. Let's go through each attribute and talk about what they do. The first one is strength. When you raise your strength, you're going to be better at hitting with a sword, an axe, or a mace, or with hand-to-hand. You'll also be able to carry more stuff, and you'll have more fatigue, meaning you'll be able to swing your sword faster and harder before you run out of fatigue, and the effectiveness of your attacks diminishes. The next attribute is intelligence, which affects your total magicka pool. That determines how many spells you can cast before you're out of magicka and have to drink a potion to refill it, or wait for it to refill on its own. The next one is willpower. Willpower determines how quickly your magicka regenerates, but it also gives you more total fatigue. Agility also affects your total fatigue, but it increases the damage you do with bows, and it will decrease your likelihood to be staggered when you are in a melee fight. Speed is a fairly straightforward attribute. The higher your speed, the faster you move. After that comes endurance, which is probably the most important attribute, particularly if you are trying to create a character that's very robust and effective in combat. Your endurance will give you more fatigue, it will also give you more health, and it will give you more health as you level up. So the higher your endurance is early in the game, the more health you will have later in the game. This makes endurance the attribute that efficient levelers tend to focus on first. The next attribute is personality, which will give you more dialogue options, make it easier to persuade people, and will also allow you to do a little bit more haggling when you are trying to get a good price at a merchant. That being said, just as an aside, personality is probably the weakest and least important attribute in Oblivion due to the way that they've set up the game and the way that you interact with NPCs. The final attribute is luck. Luck will boost all of your skills at the same time, making it very effective to have high luck early in the game. Later in the game, it becomes less important. I should note that luck does not affect what kind of treasure you get in the game. It only boosts the effectiveness of your skills. Now, since luck has no skills that are directly associated with it, when you level up, you can only raise it by 1 point at a time. I should also mention at this point that While it takes 10 skill ups in your major skills in order to level up, you can actually get more than 10 skills per level. Once you get your 10th major skill up, you'll see a little dialog box pop up that says you need to rest and reflect on what you've learned. You can actually keep playing the game and continue to level up your skills. And you can even level up several times in a row by sleeping several times in a row. However, this is not advisable to do, as usually you're not going to get the same attribute bonuses that you'd get as if you played each level individually. Oblivion is unique in that leveling up doesn't just change the power level of your character. It also changes the power level of the world at large. You'll encounter stronger monsters, monsters of a more difficult variety, the higher up your level is. This is why leveling can be kind of a problem if you don't understand the system, because as your character levels up, it may not gain as much strength as the monsters in the world. Other things also change based on your level. The availability of certain quests, particularly Daedric quests, which require certain levels, as well as the kind of loot that you get from killing monsters and NPCs in the world. The higher the level you are, the better weapons, the better armor they drop, the better the enchantments are going to be on those weapons and armor. So with all of that in mind, let's return to those 3 strategies that I mentioned at the beginning of the video for leveling up your character, and we'll even add a 4th one that's really off the wall but is definitely possible in the world of Oblivion. The first one I mentioned was just play the game. Pick a class that you like, pick a race that you like that represents the playstyle that you want to engage in, and go out and experience Tamriel. What may happen with this is you may end up under-leveling a little bit. That is, your attributes are not gaining as many points as they need to keep up with the strength of the monsters, which increase with each level. The solution to that is you can adjust the difficulty slider down, or you can go out and try to find better gear, or you can correct what you're doing as you continue to level. What tends to happen is the things that you do in the game, you get better and better and better at, and the things that you don't do in the game, the skills that you don't use or the ones that you avoid, you get relatively worse and worse at. You don't actually get worse at them, but worse relative to the increasing difficulty of the monsters. So as you play, say, an assassin class, you get better and better and better at shooting your bow and stealthing, and you get worse and worse at standing and taking a beating with your shield on. This isn't a big problem. This just means that your play style becomes more and more specific as you level up. And it's really a pretty fun way to play the game and can generate a lot of replayability. So if you're kind of put off by having to think about a lot of stats or what you're going to do or what skills you're going to use, just go play the game and be aware that that difficulty slider is there in case you end up in a position where the game just becomes unfun because of the challenge. That's why it's there. The second strategy I mentioned, efficient leveling, I really don't recommend for most players. I recommend it for people who are like me, that are into the meticulum of RPG systems and really enjoy micromanaging the development of a character and maximizing its potential. I did a very long piece of content in the past that goes through all of the ins and outs for how to level efficiently. Tells you what mods might be useful so you don't have to write things down on paper, and what the outcome of your character is likely to be, as well as a couple of tricks for how to increase your attributes past 100 and even increase your skills past 100. You can hopefully find that link down below in the description box, but like I said, that's really for people who enjoy the meticulum of dealing with every little detail in an RPG system. For most people, that's not necessarily an enjoyable way to play the game, but that's you. Check out that piece of content down below. The third strategy I mentioned, balanced character creation, is what I really recommend for most people who are into RPG systems, but really want to spend their time playing and role-playing in the world of Tamriel, not managing tiny little stat increases and keeping track of which skills are going where as they play. This is for people who want to plan their character well and then just play the game and have their character continue to get stronger. I'll likely do another longer piece of content that goes into much greater detail with character creation and gives a lot of tips for how to match things up to have a really enjoyable experience without having to think about all of your major and minor skills after character creation. But here's the gist of it. What you want to do with picking your race, class, and sign is pick a combination of those that contrasts or complements your desired playstyle. For instance, if you want to play as a wizard wearing wizard robes, which are not armor, and using magic entirely, you actually probably wouldn't want to pick an Altmer or a Breton. Those are two races which are already naturally inclined towards magic. They have bonuses towards their skills in various schools of magic. What you'd actually want to pick is something like a Redguard or a Nord. Redguards and Nords already have lower magic skills, but they're very high in endurance and they're high in strength. Those are two attributes that you're not likely to level up much if you're playing as a wizard class. So if you roll a character that has those attributes already naturally being high, it makes your character much better able to deal with the continuing difficulty of the game as you level up. Lets you actually carry a lot of stuff without having to go and level up Blade or level up Blunt in order to get a +5 strength skill up. It allows you to have enough health that you're not going to just die very easily at the beginning of the game, and will also continue to give you good boosts to your health each time that you level up without having to stop and level up some skills that are related to endurance. Likewise, if you're going to play a warrior, choosing a race like Breton, which has a high intelligence and willpower right from the get-go, will allow you to use more spells early on to kind of supplement your entire kit, and it also has a 50% resist to magicka, which is going to be useful for any character. When it comes to picking a class, I usually recommend a custom class, even if you aren't planning on leveling efficiently. This is because you can choose to make some skills minor skills which you plan on using as you play, which will not contribute to you leveling up, but will contribute to your attribute bonuses. For instance, if you want to play a really tough warrior, you can choose block as one of your major skills, and you can have heavy armor as a minor skill. You just wear heavy armor, and the skill ups that you get from wearing the heavy armor will contribute to your endurance gains when you level up. When it comes to picking a birth sign, I usually recommend you pick one of the 4 birth signs that actually gives attribute bonuses. This is because attributes will help you right away, and they'll also help you very late in the game. If you compare this to some of the birth signs which give powers, usually those powers are not very good or are easily replaced later in the game by learning some spells, or in some cases acquiring free powers from stones that just happen to be standing out in the world. There's also a couple of birth signs which affect your magicka. These, I think, mostly become moot as you level up, with the exception of one called the Atronarch, which is just very weird. It makes it so that you can't gain back magicka, but you absorb magical spells. So if that kind of playstyle really appeals to you, you can certainly use it. But otherwise, I would say stick to the Thief, the Lady, the Steed, and the Warrior, which give various bonuses to your attributes. Those are going to be much more useful throughout the entirety of the game. The downside to this balanced character creation is that you end up with a character that's a little bit weaker at level 1 compared to lining up all of the bonuses so that they work with your desired playstyle. However, the game is also pretty easy at level 1, so this isn't really a big downside. Now, I did mention one extra way of leveling that's very off the wall, and that is actually to not level at all. In Oblivion, you can actually avoid the leveling process entirely. All you have to do is never sleep, and it's totally possible to do that in the game. Never go up to a bed, never click on it, never rest, and you will never level up. But what will happen is your skills will continue to increase. So even if you stay at level 1, your skills can go all the way up to level 100, and you're going to get all the benefit of leveling those skills up. You won't gain attributes from that. However, the monsters in the world, they're not going to get any stronger either. So your character will continue to get more and more powerful, even without having any kind of attribute bonuses, because the monsters are staying at the same power level. There are some downsides to this. Certain parts of the game are not available unless you sleep. One of them is the Dark Brotherhood questline. The Murderers Guild will not contact you unless you kill an innocent and then sleep afterwards. There are also parts of the game where you will be forced to sleep, including if you ever get caught committing a crime and go to jail. You have to sleep in your bedroll in order to serve your time and be released from prison. But if you've played the game before and you want to try something that's very different, you can try just not leveling at all. Just let your skills continue to go up and don't sleep. So that's going to wrap up this very thorough explanation of how the leveling system in Oblivion works. Hopefully this information is useful and interesting to you as you decide how you want to play this particular game. One of the things that's great about Oblivion is that you can play it a variety of different ways and it can appeal to a variety of different playstyles. If you want to play the game entirely with a very limited skill set and focus on a few skills, you can do that and you can complete the entire game that way and really have a great time. If you want to be a jack of all trades or a master of all trades as you efficiently level, you can do that as well. The leveling system can be as in-depth as you wish it to be or as casual as you wish it to be as well, as long as you're willing to adjust the difficulty slider if need be. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you thought down below in the comment section. You can find more of what I do at davidvstewart.com and dvspress.com. I write books and I put out music from time to time. So if you want to keep up with me, you can also go to dvspress.com/list and join my mailing list. And I'll see you guys next time.